Welcome. Sit back, relax for a little bit of reflection, introspection, and connection. Join us in our authentic chats about how we navigate this world as humans. Before we start, a big thank you to our sponsor, ChangeYourLifeRetreats.com, a place where you can start your path to authenticity. Find out more at ChangeYourLifeRetreats.com. Welcome to the Talking Miles podcast. I'm here again with Paulina. I'm in my new office. It feels quite nice. But we're going to touch on a subject today. Do you know what? I'm really nervous about this.
Why? Hi, hello.
It's really, I'm really nervous. I think it's because I'm a man. And well, let's go into this. I'll tell you why I think this is such an important subject.
Mm-hmm.
For those of you that don't follow me on social media, I've done a couple of Instagram lives with a lady called Laura Bird. She has an Instagram called @Reigniting Women. So talking a lot about the feminine divine and the masculine divine and energies, because whether you like the woo-woo or not, we are electricity, chemicals, and a biological blob. Fact. And I was having a conversation with my wife, and it was around happiness and, who suffers with mental health the most? Is it men or is it women? Now, we know the statistics at the moment is something like 76% of men commit suicide. We know that. And I was kind of part of that statistic, didn't follow through, but part of that statistic. But what's interesting is that statistic is rising for women. And I was reading just before coming on to the podcast, I was looking online, and from around about 2019, there's been lots of study. There's stuff in the New York Times. There's been stuff, and there was a lady, I can't remember her name now, started to look at kind of feminism and women's rights in the 60s. And what I find really interesting is that a lot of the arguments around female empowerment are still being based on a lot of the stuff in the 60s. So I started to Google, are women happier now? Now they've got more opportunity, more freedoms. Nothing's perfect, right? And men are very much the same in some ways, but there's still that narrative around women are second class. And what was interesting was that even though there's more opportunity, even though women have got more independence, more sexually liberated, and all the rest of it, this survey basically said, that's been tracked from the 60s, they've done this survey, that only 58.2% of women feel happy. And I think that's really interesting, is that are people more empowered? Are women more empowered? Or actually, what's happened is that everybody's just as miserable as one another, and we're just part of the matrix more. So women have given up certain rights to get other rights, and they just swapped. What are your thoughts on this, as somebody who works with women? Generally, are women freer? Are they happier? I don't know if they
are. Unfortunately, no. And the reason is because they have more and more responsibilities and chores. And, being a mother is a responsibility. Nowadays, you can't really sit at home because our costs are rising, and majority of the time you have to have two income streams or two people working. Very little, I would say only a few percent of people can afford to just sit at home and take care of children fully, because everything is so expensive, right? So women they have a lot of responsibilities, a lot of burdens, and on top of that, the upbringing, how, their mother or grandmother were, and they have a lot of programs built in that comes, with the heritage. And I feel it's extremely important to create the self-care ritual or routine for yourself in order to go back to yourself and not only be a wife, a mother, someone else to someone else, right? And going back to ourselves and spending that quality time, it's a challenge right now since I'm working with a lot of women. It's very hard for them to designate that 1 hour or 2 hours or a few hours to do what they need to do for themselves because it comes with guilt and shame. And even though they're taking their time off and they are doing things for themselves, they still have those hard feelings or, difficult emotions because of the family, because of the children, because of, the heritage. What I mean, heritage is like ancestors, or, like your lineage in terms of your upbringing, right? Your who you are on a level when it comes to like the constellation family, right? And connection with your ancestors. So nowadays, just to make it short and sweet, nowadays women have more and more opportunities. However, they don't have more time to enjoy those opportunities because they have to do more and more in order to sometimes just survive, sometimes just to have basic things or do things that they need to do in order to have some level of life or some quality of life,
Really interesting because I work predominantly with women as well. But when I do work with men, I've started to analyze this and look at some of the intake forms and the data and kind of layer this masculine and divine feminine energy over to see where people are. Because I always say that energy is not about penises and vaginas. We will lean towards one type of energy. And what's been really interesting is that I noticed something that was all of the women that I work with are in their masculine, and all of the men that I work with are in their feminine. So that I do feel that generally in the world at the moment, I think the system has created this chaos. And when we look from a mental health perspective, an interesting conversation I had with a lady at my Chamber of Commerce was I'm trying to make so the thing I don't like the word wellness and mental health. My things around psychological safety, which is what I believe most people need to grow, is that psychological safety, a sense of self, a sense of belonging, a sense of purpose, a sense of community, I guess. And what I'd recognized was that when we look at the well-being space, it's very much run by women. And I started to ask myself, well, as a man, why is it that I didn't access that? And then when I start to look at kind of men's versions of that, all men have really done is they've created a male version of what is female. So men's circles talking about your problems. And so I started to look at what was the energy in those places. And actually, they were very much feminine energy. So there's nothing wrong with that, but it wasn't kind of my vibe. It wasn't, I can go into that feminine energy of empathy and love and caring, but I'm very much in my masculine and denied that for a long time. And I think that's one of the things is that I've done a lot of research on this, is that men express through anger, not through emotion or crying. That's how women tend to release energy. Men do it through anger. And this actually showed up when we moved house. Because when we moved into this house, it wasn't in the best of cleanliness. And the garage was a mess. There was tatty cupboards. And Michelle was like, we cleaned our house top to bottom, right? Which was really interesting because when we're looking at this like dynamic of traditional male and female, I was like Bob the Builder fixing everything, and Michelle was like cleaning everything. So it was like very kind of but then when we came here, Michelle got really really upset because we would have just expected it was clean, to be deep clean, and so Michelle was getting upset, and I was like straight into let's fix it mode. and just ripped all the shelves off, got a hammer, smashed all the stuff up and put it in the skip, and just felt so much better because
Hmm.
my emotion had come out in anger, not in violence, but in anger.
Yeah.
And I wasn't angry as in shouting. I transmuted that energy and went, okay, I'm feeling this frustration, I'm feeling this emotion. And I do that in the gym. So my therapy is now going to the gym because it's something physical that I can shut my
Yeah.
mind. And so I think when it comes to women, I just wonder whether allowing them to, if they're very much in their masculine, I think it's probably quite scary for them to
Hmm.
go back into their feminine, because to go back into their feminine feels like they failed
Yeah.
at
But
some
also,
state.
I think it also feels that they are vulnerable, and that's scary.
Yes, and I think, and this is where I think the problem is that for a woman to create, for a woman to step into that vulnerability, to have that courage to do it, she needs the masculine to protect her to do it.
Yeah.
This is where the media certainly have are really getting women. I think this is where the depression is coming from, the anxiety, is because what the media has said and what the world has said is you can do it on your own, boss bitch. You can
Yeah.
be a queen. And you don't need a man, or you don't need that masculine energy. And therefore, it all comes down to loneliness.
Mm.
So even if you go to a woman's circle and you do all that sort of stuff, it's great, it's amazing. But actually, sometimes just having that guardian, that masculine energy,
Yeah.
just to know that you're protected. And a lot of people might not like this, but if you look at nature, nature doesn't have a religion, nature doesn't have politics, nature doesn't have any of that construct of the matrix. Nature just does what it does.
Hmm.
If you find in nature, that's what happens. The masculine, seahorses is a good example, right?
Hmm.
They carry the babies, but they're allowing the female to do what they need to do. And that's, I think that's the thing. The masculine energy becomes the protector, the container for the female energy to create. And women want to create. Women want to be seen. So you need that masculine energy in there. I think that's what's happened in the world, is that and I think more women manipulate women than men manipulate women. I don't know, that might
Hmm.
be a big statement, but I see it certainly in the transformations space, and we've talked about this a lot, about personally, about how women will spend a small fortune going on courses and retreats and all the rest of it, but don't actually move forward.
I know, I've been there. So yeah, there's definitely this need to learn more, but also there is another part, which is application. And the application happens when you have the right environment. And creating that environment is really important. And we were saying you can create an environment with the men. However, what I've noticed recently, um, we don't really see real men anymore.
No.
We don't see like Bob the Builder. You know what I mean? Like a man who is like, very strong and masculine and can fix stuff. Especially when I used to live in England or in America, it was really hard to find a man who can fix stuff. In Poland, it's a little bit better because men are more, they had to adjust to, the circumstances. However, they still have that skill to fix things. Not all of them, but a lot of them, they know how to fix. I'm talking about manual labor. And I feel like when you have that type of man, you feel safe. However, what I've noticed from my experience, having that simple man, let's put it simple, like, the Bob the Builder.
No, we are. Men are
Uh,
simple.
they are simple. However, for me, having that man who is just fixing and there for me in a very physical realm, and I cannot have this very spiritual or very, high level conversations that are, touching upon different realms.
Mm.
it's not gonna work. I tried it. It's not gonna work. It has to be a balance of both. Someone who is,
Absolutely.
grounded and knows stuff in the physical reality, can fix stuff, and someone who is also intellectual, someone who is, first of all, coachable in a way that he wants to learn. He wants to learn, he wants to go on that journey of life instead of just settling, oh, I know how to fix now, I know how to build the house. Let's stay there for
Can I
25 years.
share something with you?
Yeah.
Now I'm going to go completely woo-woo now.
Okay.
Completely woo-woo, right? So going from that masculine, but I had an experience several years ago, and it was eye-opening.
Hmm.
And so I've had this in different ways, but one of the ones that really stood out to me when it came to this masculine and feminine energy sort of thing was it was a scene. I can't even remember. I can't remember what it was, but I was doing some work. Anyway, I was doing some work and I was working with somebody else. And so this scene was, imagine like Stonehenge. So it was like a henge. It was like
Hmm.
a stone circle. And in the center of this stone circle was, it looked like a fire, but it wasn't a fire. It was like an orb of light, but there were stones around it as if it was like a fire. Within the inner part of this circle were people dressed all in pure white with hoods. It wasn't the Ku Klux Klan, right? They had like cowl hoods on. Some were men, some were women, but they were predominantly women. Think of like priestesses. They were like priestesses, priests. And then on the outside were kind of like, it's like Archangel Michael, kind of, they had like Roman warrior type outfits on with wings. And it was really interesting as I looked at it. And I could see myself with with these wings and with this thing.
Hmm.
And this voice just came in, and all it said is it said, your truth is that you are the protector of your light.
Wow.
Your mission here is to allow, what was it? Your mission here is to allow the, it wasn't the feminine divine. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was the priestesses to come back. Now, I previously had, oh, it was when I've been Reiki, that was it. It was when I've been my Reiki
Hmm.
stuff. And it came up. And what had happened is my Reiki master was some dark entity. It was like really, really weird. And
Wow.
I got put in this stone coffin with a sword through me.
Hmm.
As that sword had gone through me, all of this, the light started to disappear in the world. And all of these priestesses were scattered all over. And basically, the memory of that era had lost.
Hmm.
And this thing about light workers being on the, so what we came through is like there's two types of light workers. There's the light workers who are bringing the light and those who are awakening people. So the
Mm.
protectors of the light, which is what I was, it are people who are going out there into the hostile world and
Yeah.
awakening people to their light. And then that allows them to start their journey to connecting with people like themselves, that community. Now, it sounds really, really woo-woo, but when you look at it from an energy perspective, that male and female energy, and it's only just coming to my mind this now, when you look at that male and female energy, that's pretty much what it is that the divine masculine has creates the container, the protection to
Yeah.
allow those the feminine to create. And this makes sense because women are God. They give birth. They
Yeah.
create other humans. They create life. And the male's job is pretty much to protect that and to make that happen and to serve the woman to be able to do that. And equally, that's can be tiring. And so what the man needs is the woman to serve him. And it doesn't mean serve as in
Yeah. Yeah.
and all the rest of it. But traditionally in our house, Michelle does majority of the cooking. She does.
Yeah.
She's just better cook than I do. I will cook. It's not a problem. I will do that. But then when it comes to the building stuff, the fixing stuff, our boiler has gone, we've realized we've run out of oil, but you know, just working out what's happening in the boiler, putting stuff up, building stuff, painting, all of those creative things. Men are very much indoctrinated in the world, but you can't deny that the world wouldn't be what it is without men. And
That's true. We need,
the world wouldn't be what it is without women. It's like a recipe.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah, and I think it's the balance, it's right. We were saying it's the balance between the feminine and the masculine energy, and how can we restore that balance? Our earth is out of balance. Look what's happening to our climate.
Yeah. And just to go back on one of your other points, isn't it interesting when you talked about, women are being expected to be all things now?
Yeah.
To be the business owner, the mom, the whatever it is. And isn't it interesting that we're seeing an increase in mental health amongst children? Because we're now expecting the state to look after our children. That's dangerous. Nobody would ever do that. I know they say it takes a village to bring up a child, but you wouldn't want to hand over your children to politicians. But that's basically what we're doing. We're handing our children over and then wondering why our children feel disconnected, why our children, we can't communicate with them, because we're burnt out, but we've set this system up. So we've set ourselves up to fail. And I don't think I think people just need to wake up a little bit and ask themselves what they want. What do you think women need? If you're going to give them some advice, what would be the advice that you would give them?
What I would give, I know this is going to sound very harsh, is to stop for a moment and really listen to what they really need and want, especially on the physical level body, before it gets too late. When they get cancer, they have heart attack, or any other fatal disease, that's too late, or anything that's
showing and backing that up, that more people are getting ill.
So this is very hard, a wake-up call. And I'm saying this to all my clients. We have so many tools, and we were talking before recording, so many tools that are available. You have so many specialists. And I'm not talking about doctors, because I don't really believe that they are the only one who can help us. There are many other people who are trained and they discovered themselves later, and they didn't go the standard path of getting certification or getting doctor's degree or a PhD. There's so many people who can guide you through the process and help you see what you need to see in order to transform or release the emotion that is causing that disease, because it's really about the emotion that's stuck in your body. And it can be a very simple emotion like anger, but if you start digging deep into your ancestors, you might be carrying some wounds that are not yours.
And you're right there. And I think the other thing is that the trauma that you don't deal with today, you will pass on to your kids and your kids and your kids. So there is a responsibility, and you cannot do it alone.
Yeah. It's like I'm always saying this to my clients. You cannot tickle yourself. It's not doing, if you're tickling yourself, you're not laughing. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm just scratching myself. But if someone does it, you're like, oh my God, this is so funny. Someone's tickling me, right? I am trying to make it light because we went into like this seriousness, but it is a very serious topic.
Yes, and I think that the important or the hardest thing, certainly for me, is, well, here's a good example of, we're doing the retreat in Pennsylvania at the end of the month.
Yeah.
You can still come along. Just drop a comment.
Yes.
And we're meeting up in New York beforehand, and you were saying about your friend is doing a cacao ceremony, and you were kind of, do you want to come along to this? And I was like, yeah, hell yeah. No, I've never had cacao. It still seems ridiculously stupid, even though, I'm kind of more mainstream in what I do, but the spirituality stuff is very much my own personal thing. It's not something that I would ever do commercially, because just having that moment of
With yourself.
with yourself is really important. So it's not something that that's my selfish thing. It's not something that I do. Like that's why I don't do past life regression or future life stuff. I can do it. I know how to do it. So I don't do Reiki anymore, even though I'm a Reiki master, because for me, that's my own personal stuff. But just when you talked about that, it wasn't about the cacao ceremony. It was just, here's an opportunity just to connect with people level and allow myself to just experience something. And I think that one of the biggest challenges that men and women have when they're going on that journey of self-discovery and transformation is that the vast majority of people in that space are telling them this is what you need to do.
Yes.
Actually, the people who do this properly, or in my opinion, because this is what we both do, we're creating the environment of self-discovery for that person to find their own truth.
Thank you. And this is exactly what I'm saying about the breath work. Because I was really having a webinar tonight in Polish. So I'm not inviting anyone unless anyone who's watching or listening to that is Polish. Just let me know if you want to have a bilingual option. With the breath, it's like no one's telling you what to do, because sometimes we have people who are telling us what to do and we're not ready. And I experienced this on my own. I am so eager to level up. I'm missing the steps and it's not working. And I'm crumbling back or falling down. And it's like, oh my gosh, I spent all this money on all this energy. It's not working. Something is not working here. And it hit me that I'm trying to do too much, too fast. I'm missing the steps. And I had to go back to the breath work, because breath work is really, and especially there's a huge difference. We call people who are working with breath work facilitators. They're not coaches. They're not therapists. They're facilitators. What that means, going back to your story about the angel, we are like guardian angels. I'm getting chills when I'm saying this. We're like guardian angels. We are sitting by your side, assisting you, watching you, how you go through this transformation, and allowing you to go through this process on your own. And the breath is showing you what you need to see in that moment. You're not forcing it. You're allowing it. And that's what it is, right? With the ability to really see what it is instead of forcing it, instead of jumping forward. That's taking step by step, approach.
From a neurological point of view, when we look at that in the body, when we connect with the breath, and I would agree with you, the breath, I always go back to the breath. Always. If I get stuck, even with a client, just breathe. Breathe and see what comes up. Because I don't think people realize how powerful just being with the breath.
I know. I think we have to educate people so much. It's like telling them you're gonna have a heart attack unless if you're not gonna breathe. You know what I mean? Like being very straightforward. Because if I say,
"Woo," isn't it? Look, there is no life without the breath. The first thing we do when we're born is breathe. The last thing we do before we die is to stop breathing. It is the only constant. So if you ever get stuck, you need to go that and bring it back to the woman thing and stop and breathe. Stop and breathe and look up and go, am I living the life that I want to live? Or am I living the life that somebody else is breathing into me? And what breath that they're breathing into you is toxic. You walk around New York, you would not walk around London, we're in a city, but we know that those cities are polluted, the air is polluted. And it's one of the reasons why we chose to do the retreat up in the Poconos Mountains.
Yeah.
Lots of trees, proper fresh air.
I know.
In nature. It's not some resort in Ibiza. We've gone to somewhere that is very natural, which is very neutral, and somewhere that we can have an opportunity. And Magnolia Streamside Resort, obviously where we're doing it, I'll have the magnolias out, and I think the magnolia is an interesting tree, flower, bush. I don't know what it actually is. Magnolia, it's a tree, isn't it?
Yeah,
is that actually it's a beautiful flower, but it's blooming window is very, very
Short.
narrow. And therefore, that's kind of is a metaphor for what happens when we have these insights.
Mm.
We don't know when it's going to turn up, and it can be so profound and beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
We have it in that moment, and the next minute it's gone. Because the universe doesn't give us this constant blissful state.
No.
And that's what we're trying to do. We've been told, oh, you can be in this blissful state forever. It's not going to happen. There's light and dark, and you've got to understand how you navigate the darkness as well as the light. And that's what most people don't want to do, because it's fucking hard.
I know.
Navigating the darkness is hard. No pill, no potion. You know, it's even when people talk about ayahuasca and things like that. It's dangerous if you don't have a facilitator
Mm-hmm.
take you through that stuff.
Yeah.
And
I don't think you can do it on their own, that you have to have a person who's doing this. However, it's really important to find the one that's going to guide you, because it's like another business. People are taking people on the journey, charging money, leaving them open, not giving them the support after, which is super, super important. Because when your level of awareness is open, you're like cracked open, and you go back to your old environment, guess what's going to happen? You're going to feel like you're crazy, or something else is going to show up for you that you don't expect or you don't want.
And I think going back to the breath, the experience that a lot of people have and why they don't go on this journey is that they have a moment where they know they need to get help.
Mm-hmm.
So they breathe out. And somebody else takes that breath. So it becomes imbalanced, because one person's breathing out, the other person's breathing in.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore one is giving and one is taking, but they don't give you the breath back that you require.
Yeah.
So they may give you carbon dioxide rather than oxygen.
Yeah.
So there might be a little bit of oxygen in there. So you're breathing enough, but you don't feel as though you've taken a good breath. And a good facilitator, a good coach, even a coach is a facilitator, because what they're doing is they're giving you back the reflection. And then hopefully they're giving you back the insight, which is the breath back. And now we feel balanced, because when we're breathing in and out equally, and that's why when you do breath work, isn't it, is that you can shift those states by sometimes you're breathing equally, sometimes you're breathing through different nostrils and the mouth. So you're moving the paradigm and energy around in different ways. Breath of Fire, I think, is a perfect example of that. Breath of Fire is a panic attack, but panic attacks are basically it's a controlled panic attack for me. But when we look at something like a panic attack, there's something wrong with you, you've got anxiety. That no, the body is telling you what type of breath modality you need to put in to be able to release that energy, to move that energy around. But if you don't know how to do that, and you don't know how to use the breath, to use the body, to use the mind properly, then it's going to hijack you.
Yeah, that's true. And I think when you become numb, what I've noticed, a lot of women who are not really in tune with their bodies, they overweight majority of the time. They have to build that shield.
Because you're holding the energy, and
yeah. And then I can see immediately if someone is coming with that energy of the posture being, very like, oh, I got this, I'm the, macho man. It's not really who they are deep down. They might be very subtle or very soft and gentle, very feminine. Unfortunately, they have to put that facade or that shield to protect.
It's hard to walk the world authentically, because one thing I can guarantee you is if you do show up as your true self, you will get attacked. When you shine your light, you will attract shadow.
True. You will. However, I believe that once you know how to be more authentic, you don't want to go back to your old version, because it's going to be fake and it's not going to work with you. Like, for example, sometimes it's hard for me to post stuff on social media. I wanted to post certain things when I was like involved with some company. I couldn't post. It was just a stupid post. I couldn't physically post because it was not in alignment, I felt so like blocked, or like I couldn't even move to press the button to create that post, right? Or to write. So I feel like when you discover your true self, your authentic self, it's harder for you to go back to the old version because it doesn't exist anymore. And that's what I want to say about the retreat. We are creating that authentic space for people to open up, to tap into their inner self, the higher self, and also going back into their self and really discovering something new. Those aha moments when you were talking about, magnolias, those moments of inspirations, those moments of, being a genius for like few moments, right? Those moments are worth living for. And I'm telling you from my experience, because I know a lot of people, they have a very flat life. They're routine based. They live on autopilot. Nothing exciting is happening to them anymore. They've been in a relationship for 20 something years. They just do mundane tasks, and that's their comfort zone. But deep down, they're slowly dying and they're crying.
You are going to die at some point, so you
Yeah.
might as well try and live. It's interesting. My wife always says to me when I challenge something, and she always says you can't say that, and I say I can. The difference is when I say it, I 100% own the responsibility for anything that comes from it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to live my life by not having a voice or saying something that might seem controversial, because actually I'm very childlike, I'm very curious.
Yeah.
And I recognize that I might not always ask the right questions in the right way, but I would rather seek forgiveness than permission.
That's very interesting.
And
I think,
I think most people are looking outside of them for somebody else to give them permission. You have to give yourself permission.
yeah.
If you really want to live your best life and have the best experiences, you've got to give yourself permission to go and live your life. And that can be tough. And that's why you need people around you that are going to help you make those choices, because you need that safety net. And
Yeah.
it's finding those right people. And so my top tip, let's give people a top tip. Let's give the women out there a top tip. Let's give them out there a top tip. I would say that if something resonates with you and it feels right, even though the world is telling you it's wrong, then it's right.
Mm-hmm.
Simple as. If it feels right, it is right.
Yeah.
When I work with clients and I do my onboarding calls, I never ask them what they think. I ask them what they feel. Does this feel?
Yeah.
Even if you think it's too expensive, if you think it's whatever it is, does it feel right? I would rather you say this doesn't feel right and walk away, because I don't want you wasting your energy, and I don't want you wasting my energy unless you're fully committed to yourself.
Yeah.
And I think you've got to say to yourself, am I going to live that mundane life, or do I feel there's something that I need to do? And so we've still got availability on the retreat. Just go to changeyourliferetreats.com, and come and join us in the Poconos Mountains, because if you give yourself permission to do that, especially women, come and join us. We're going to create something magical, and you never know what's going to come out of that.
That's
So
true.
what do you feel about that? And what would your tip be?
Yeah, I think this is a brilliant ending to this podcast. That question, and leaving people ponder, or maybe asking that question if they can sit with few breaths and feel it in their body. How does it feel like? How does it resonate, or it's something that is a hell yeah or hell no?
Absolutely. Yeah. What is the hell yeah that I'm going to give to myself? What permission am I going to give myself to give myself a hell yeah and say, enough is enough. I'm going to start changing my life today. What is that one micro move that you might want to make? It might be that you comment on this podcast. It might be that you've got this far on the podcast and you're going, actually, I get it, and I'm stuck and I need some help.
Yeah.
And you can reach out to us. And with that, I think, yeah, let's leave that. How do you as a woman say hell yes to yourself? And how can we help you do that? With that, I think we'll end it.
Thank you.
So see you next time on the Talking Minds podcast. Bye bye.